to be with you today to discuss a subject which is near and dear to my heart, that of improvisation. And it's a pleasure to be using one of the fine Johannus instruments, the Rembrandt 4900, which is in the studio of Florida Organ Works, owned by Van Howard. And we certainly appreciate him allowing us to make this DVD recording in his studio today. You know, the subject of improvisation is one which has intrigued organists probably since the ancient times, when the organ was nothing but some flutes of Pan. But when we think of improvisation in this country, we really think of the French school primarily, that of Tournemire, that of Pierre Cochereau, Jean-Jacques Grunewald, Jean Langlais, and famous organists and improvisateurs such as those gentlemen. And as we also think of improvisation, we tend to think of great big symphonic pieces or four-voice fugues, theme and variations, sonatas. And because we look at improvisation in this manner, and because so many of us have probably heard or had an opportunity to hear some of these great performers, we become slightly intimidated. We think, I'll never be able to improvise a four-voice fugue, or I'll never be able to do something in sonata form. And I would have to say that for most of us, this is always going to be the case. But it doesn't mean that the whole idea of improvisation is then beyond our grasp or beyond our reach. It's truly something which we can work on and something which we can learn. Apart from work at the organ, there are some things we can do and some courses of study that we can undertake which will help us in our quest. If you've taken any courses in keyboard harmony, for example, these can be most useful. The great French teacher, Nadia Boulanger, spent an enormous amount of time with her students in the subject of keyboard harmony as a foundation for the subject of improvisation. Another course of study would be that of counterpoint, both 16th and 18th century counterpoint. Another course would be form and analysis, and of course we also would not want to forget solfège, the whole idea of being able to take down in dictation the music that we're hearing at any given time. That's an invaluable skill. Let's start simply. Let's not try to overcomplicate things. My own feeling is that it's best, if you can't remember the tune of a hymn, write it down, just the melody line. Don't open the hymnal and play it from the hymnal, because you're going to be confused by all of the chordal harmony that you see there. And you don't want to be confined by a harmonic structure that you're going to want to ultimately change. So it's better just to have the melody line by itself, or if you can remember the tune, that's even better. So let's just play the tune on a simple 8-foot principle, and we'll go right from there. By playing the melody by itself, you're freeing your mind from an established harmonic structure. And so rather than thinking of chords and thinking of the traditional style of melody and some sort of harmonic accompaniment, let's do something a little different from that. let's take that same melody and try to create a counter melody. And for this, let's choose some little bit more colorful registration so that we can at least hear the difference between the two voices, one of which will be the melody and the other of which will be a counter melody. Very simply done. That's actually a very simple approach for beginning to improvise. Taking the cantus firmus and then establishing a counter melody to go with that. Now, one of the things that I often find when I'm working on the study of improvisation is that our left hand and pedal sometimes wants to fall into that trap of being much more accompanimental rather than independent. And for the purposes of improvisation, I always encourage people to work on the left hand part or a counter melody, if it occurs in the left hand, independently from the melody itself. Now, of course, we can put the counter melody in the right hand and put the melody itself in the left hand. But for our purposes today, let's look again at that, and let's add a pedal part, just a very simple pedal part to that, and allow ourselves to have a counter melody and then some sort of pedal accompaniment. Let's put that together with our melody, and then we'll have the pedal part independent from that, and we'll have a left hand counter melody. Believe it or not, we're part way to improvising an actual chorale prelude in Baroque style. Now, what would be involved if we wanted to make this just a little bit more elaborate, not harmonically or not in terms of texture, but simply in terms of thematic development, in terms of something in the style of Walter or Pachelbel, something which you might see in any of your Baroque music collections. If you look through the various chorale preludes, you will notice that the melody part, the melodic material, is separated by development of the theme between each line of the actual tune, and then comes back in again to reassert itself. So let's try doing that. Let's see if we're able to construct a very simple chorale prelude by having an introduction and also bringing the theme in and allowing the theme to be juxtaposed with interludes in between.